Welcome to True Tales from the Other Side. If you have a true encounter with the unexplained that you want to share, contact us through the email address below. Enjoy.
The highway stretched before me, a ribbon of asphalt dusted with snow and lined by skeletal trees. My car's heater groaned as it struggled to fend off the bitter chill outside, but the thought of Christmas with my family in Michigan made the long drive bearable. I hadn't been home for the holidays in years. Life had a way of keeping me busy. Deadlines, projects, excuses. But this year, I'd promised myself I wouldn't miss it. My parents, now retired, had invited the whole extended family for a big celebration, and I couldn't wait to see everyone, hear their stories, and immerse myself in the comforting chaos of a house filled with laughter and warmth. The sun was a pale smudge on the horizon, quickly swallowed by a bank of slate-gray clouds. By the time I crossed into Michigan, the weather had worsened, with snow falling in thick, swirling flakes. The windshield wipers worked overtime, but visibility was poor, and the radio buzzed with static. I was somewhere near the middle of nowhere when I noticed a green road sign half buried in snow. Elmbridge, 5 miles. It wasn't on my GPS, but I'd been watching my fuel gauge dip toward the red. Might as well stop and refuel, I muttered, taking the exit. The road narrowed into a single lane flanked by woods. The snow muffled everything, and the only sound was the crunch of my tires. When I finally saw the first hint of civilization, a weathered gas station, I felt an odd sense of relief. The station's sign creaked in the wind, advertising gas for 59 cents a gallon. I chuckled, thinking it must be some forgotten relic. Pulling into the lot, I noticed an old-fashioned pump and a payphone by the door. The interior of the gas station was dimly lit, the shelves stocked with dusty cans and candy bars in faded wrappers. The attendant was a man in his 60s with a thick mustache and a plaid jacket. He greeted me with a nod, his movements slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. "Just passing through," I said, trying to make small talk. "Headed to Elmbridge?" he asked, his voice thick with a regional twang. Yeah," I replied, though I hadn't really planned to stop there. "Nice place. Quiet this time of year," he said, handing me a receipt that looked like it had been typed on a typewriter. As I left, the snow let up, and a warm glow appeared in the distance, soft yellow lights lining the streets of a small town. Elmbridge looked like something from a Norman Rockwell painting. The main street was lined with quaint shops, their windows frosted and decorated with garlands and Christmas lights. A diner with its glowing neon sign proclaiming Betty's Eats caught my eye, and I decided to stop for coffee. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of frying bacon and fresh coffee. Booths upholstered in turquoise vinyl lined the walls, and a jukebox in the corner played Elton John's Rocket Man. The people inside looked as if they'd stepped out of a time machine. A waitress in a crisp uniform and white sneakers greeted me with a smile. "What'll it be, hon?" "Coffee," I said, sliding into a booth. I couldn't help but stare. Men in polyester suits chatted over newspapers, while a group of teenagers in flared jeans and shaggy hair laughed at the counter. The payphone on the wall rang, and the waitress answered with a cheery, "Betty's Eats. How can I help ya?" when my coffee arrived. I took a sip and tried to shake off the nagging feeling that something was off. Outside the diner, the town was buzzing. A handwritten sign on a lamppost advertised the Elmbridge Holiday Fair, and I followed the crowd to a park filled with stalls and strings of colorful lights. Children ran between booths, selling homemade fudge, ornaments, and knit scarves. A carousel, its chipped paint revealing layers of history, spun lazily as a tinny version of Silent Night played. I wandered aimlessly, drawn to the festive atmosphere, but unable to ignore the gnawing unease in my gut. It wasn't just the fashion or the old cars. It was the way people talked, their references to events and prices that didn't add up. I stopped at a booth where a man in a bowler hat sold pocket watches. His leathery face split into a grin as he saw me. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, his tone friendly but probing. "No, just passing through." "Funny," he said, holding up a watch. "Elmbridge doesn't usually get visitors. His words sent a shiver down my spine. As I moved through the crowd, I spotted a young woman sitting by the carousel. She had auburn hair tied back with a ribbon and wore a red coat that looked handmade. Something about her seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it. I approached her hesitantly. "Mind if I sit here?" She looked up with a smile. "Not at all." Her voice was soft, and her face reminded me of old family photos, specifically pictures of my grandmother as a young woman. "You're new," she said, her tone matter of fact. "Yeah, just stopped by on my way to visit family." Her smile faded. "You should be careful. Elmbridge has a way of keeping people." "What do you mean?" But she only shook her head. "You'll see." Her warning stayed with me as I wandered back toward the diner. The streets seemed different, looping in ways that didn't make sense. My car, parked where I'd left it, now had snow piled on it as if it had been there for days. Panic set in. I ran back to the gas station, but it was dark and empty. The man with the mustache was gone. The only sound was the crunch of my boots on the snow. I remembered the old man at the fair and his cryptic words. Retracing my steps, I found myself back in front of the diner. Its neon sign flickered, and for a moment the letters seemed to rearrange themselves. "Leave. .. I didn't hesitate. Jumping into my car, I sped down the road I'd come from, the snow now a blur around me. The highway appeared like a lifeline, and soon I was back on the main road, the lights of Elmbridge fading in my rearview mirror. When I finally reached my parents' house, the warmth of their hugs and the glow of the Christmas tree grounded me. But the memory of Elmbridge lingered. As we sat by the fire, I pulled out an old photo album. There, among the black and white images, was a picture of my grandmother, young and vibrant, wearing a red coat with a ribbon in her hair. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't help wondering, had I somehow stumbled into her world, if only for a moment? The thought filled me with an overwhelming gratitude for the present and a reminder to hold my family close while I still...
Thanks for listening. Remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next set of tales from the other side. Submit your story to the email below. And remember, nothing is what it seems.